Easiest way to change your life is to understand that you need to start a business. Oh, if you say you don't have time, it's not about time, it's about priority. That's one. Because if you had an emergency, for example, let's say there was a plumbing emergency in your house and the entire basement was flooded, would you find the time to deal with it? Yes, that's it. I just prove to you that you have time. Doesn't matter what's happening. If your basement is flooded, you're gonna deal with it.
Most people interview people when they've already made it. I interview people while they're building it. Today, I have Kadeem Leslie, who's joining us all the way from Sao Paulo. He's a two-time Amazon best-selling author for his book, The Full Student, as well as Full Money. He's here to talk to us about how to turn credit into cash.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. I can't tell you how excited I am for this. I think this episode is going to help a lot of people. The topic that you said that we should talk about today, I can't imagine just like there's an entrepreneur right now who's just starting, and this is going to solve a major breakthrough for them. So I can't wait to get into the meat of the matter. And then also, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to want to stick to the end because we have surprises for you.
Thank you so much, Kadeem. Tell us about you, what businesses you've owned, and how you are retired at your age.
Okay, so sure. So obviously the entire story is in here, but let's talk about it, right? So I'm gonna rest that right here. So we have picture perfect, right? There you go. Okay, good. Fantastic. All right. So here's actually how it happened. So I had this epiphany when I was 15 when my mom actually died, and then my dad was struggling financially. And I wanted to go ahead and say, you know what? I don't understand why no one is talking to me about money. I don't understand why we're in debt. I don't understand why sometimes I had to go to bed hungry. All of these things was happening to me, and I didn't understand it because at the time, mom died when I was 12. And then I went through high school with this, terrible feeling that somehow it was my fault. But then, at around age 15, I decided that I wanted to be financially retired before I hit 30. Didn't happen overnight, but I remember the decision specifically at 15. What actually happened was that I was discovering something called financial independent retire early. No, I discovered that at 15. Today, I disagree with that completely. But I'll actually tell you why in a second or later down in the episode. As I discovered this new thing, it became such a eye-opening experience because most people told me I needed to work until I was 60 and maybe I'd have 6, 7 years of freedom and then I'd move into a retirement home. That's how it was explained to me. And I said, oh, people are retiring and traveling the world by the time they're 35, 45 even, not waiting until they're 60. So I said, okay, let me actually explore this thing. So then I started businesses, started real estate, started trading stocks. But I didn't start real estate at the time, but I started exploring, learning about it, talking to people about these things. And it took me from 15, I didn't get my retirement or my financial independence until I was 24. So it took pretty much a decade, right? And then also in that journey is that I didn't even have a plan for the first maybe 4 years. I didn't even know what I was talking about. I just knew that I wanted to do this cool thing that I found on the internet.
Tell us about those first businesses that you started.
For sure. So then I was a photographer. I started a website company. I started doing graphic design. I learned how to do videos. Obviously, photography and video goes hand in hand. I started a meme page that was called You Serious. It's actually still up on Facebook. Why you? I'm serious with the question mark. You serious? That was mine. It's had lots of views, and I did that for a couple of years. I was a cellist. I was a music teacher, so I was performing. I was doing as many things as I could possibly get my hands on. I was selling T-shirts at one point, selling candy in school, you name it. I just knew that it was business and investing. At the time, I didn't have real estate, so then it was business and investing for me. I knew stocks. That's what rich people talked about, and that's what I wanted to do. And I knew that a job wouldn't get me there, and I knew I had to start businesses. So I was starting these things, not knowing really what I was doing, but learning along the way, because these was actually pivotal times. Let me tell you the story. So there was one instance of a nonprofit. It was actually my first ever project, and it was called Make Someone Smile. Now, Make Someone Smile was born out of one Christmas. I decided, you know what? My dad asked me, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, I don't really want anything. I want to give away stuff, which is crazy because I love it. Right? But I decided I wanted to give away stuff. And what we did was that my birthday would have been November. So I was probably asked that in maybe October or maybe September. And I said, you know what? This Christmas, I'm going to give away gift bags instead. That's what I'm going to do. So I went to the church, said, hey, I'm raising money. I want to give away 100 gift bags. The people on Christmas Eve, we're going to go around, going to gather a team, going to do that. And I was, remember, at the time, only 15 years old. As we did that, that was the first time that I had people, was raising funds, was leading people. I was a team leader. I had people responding to me as a 15-year-old Boy, I didn't realize at the time, but that was one of my first business projects. Or looking back, moments like those became very critical for me because then now I had leadership experience by the time I got to 18, by the time I got to 21. So then that allowed me to build the foundation, the foundational skills to be able to level up. So it's always about doing, I think. Many people think and they try to analyze the chalkboard or whiteboard, but by the time that you finish planning the perfect plan, the entrepreneur has already done it 15 times.
Right. Most people say you can't start a business as a kid, or nobody will respect you as a kid. Nobody will want to give you their money as a kid. How did you influence people at 15 years old to say, trust me with your money, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to try to inspire the world around me?
Of course. Well, that's very true. It doesn't go away. And I faced that problem for a very long time. In fact, I still think that sometimes that sticks with me. Maybe it's why I don't talk about my age much today from that experience because people always ask me my age. So then a couple of things I did, in case you're watching this and you're someone who's under 18, you might actually want to take this, run with it, right? So I always dressed very nicely. I always dressed in a suit or a button down. I was never in a hoodie. I was never in sneakers. I always wore dress shoes because that gave me the perception of someone being 10 years older. I spoke very eloquently. I tried to deepen my voice. I spoke slowly. These things gave me a air of not 15, but 25 or 24, which is quite different. I was still young, but at least I wasn't under 18, right? Especially because I dressed in a button down, right? Everywhere, every day. That's one. Two, I would never tell people my age, right? Because the only reason why people ask your age is because they think that you're younger. Then I would say to them respectfully, this is the answer I came up with. Hey, you know what? I don't tell people my age, but we're here to do business. And if it's all right with you, we can move on to the next question. That's it. Always respectful. And as an adult, adults don't ask each other how old they are. They never do that. That's a rude question. Then
Right.
getting the same level of respect as someone who is younger, you can do the same thing.
I would imagine setting that boundary right there puts yourself in a position of authority that most people at 15 wouldn't think to do. So I could definitely
Absolutely.
imagine that that would help.
Absolutely. So then those two things are very crucial. So then obviously it wouldn't be one of the first questions they asked me, but if we went down the line and eventually we were like, hey, you know what, this guy's kind of young, let me ask him, I would just set that boundary right there and we'll keep moving. But yeah, for a long time, I did business with people and people just assumed that I was maybe 21 or 22 when I was 18. Right. So that happened for a very long time. So then that's how I was able to overcome that. But what I will say is that it wasn't all, a straight trajectory up. There were very hard years, very high years, very low years, years where I didn't know what I was doing. And I will tell you, some of the perhaps saving graces is meeting people along the way and seeking out people along the way who knew what they were doing and then just learning from them. Right. So then you're able, if someone has been in an industry for 15 years and you can get to talk to them for 2 hours, especially if it costs you is a cup of coffee, right? Or pestering them on Facebook, hey, please let me get 2 hours of your time. Please, 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 for like 2 months straight. If you can do that, then you can shrink and learn so much in those 2 hours, even if they're just telling you what not to do. Now you don't have to go out and learn that lesson yourself. Very, very helpful. So tricks like this help me to move a lot faster. I know we're going to get to the credit of the topic of credit because that's so interesting. But things like that, the foundational skills, the foundational soft skills, very, very important.
And to your point, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten in my life was dress for the person that you want to be, not the person that you are. Meaning when you're applying for that company and you're saying, hey, I want to run or be a district manager for whatever the company may be, and you're applying for that sales manager position, dress like the district manager. Dress for what you aim to be so that they see you in that role from day one.
Precisely.
And that is hands
Precisely.
down best advice I've ever gotten. But
Right.
let me ask you this. Something that I struggle with personally is where is the line of authenticity, right? So,
Well,
for example, this
great
podcast,
question.
for this podcast or this interview series, I intentionally dress like the everyday average person because I
Mhm.
want the everyday average person to know that anybody can do this job. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what phase of life you're in, you can do it. However, some people have said, "Hey, Jen, does this affect your credibility?" Because when I go to work for my day job as a mortgage lender, I wear a suit most of the time unless it's a casual networking event, right? To your point, you want to have that respect of your peers and so on. How do you balance the authenticity between the two?
Well, it's a catch-22. It's a misnomer. Here's the interesting thing about uh when you are in college, this is something you have to analyze in college. When you are in college, where you sleep and where you work or you study and your career is all the same place, right? Now that's a very difficult line to draw, but it is hard and it teaches you that as soon as you come out of your dorm, you are performing. Normally, and even 50 years ago, when you were at home and when you were at work, those were two different places. Today, as you well know, social media can bring your work life home with you, and that can happen. It wasn't always like that, but at college it has always been like that. So then that's a really good training ground for you understanding that you are performing every day, because you can walk past the person who is considering you for an internship while you are looking any sort of way. That will teach you very quickly that it doesn't matter how you feel if you're trying to get to an end result. You can be the person that wants to remain, keep it real and inauthentic. But if you're not doing it intentionally, if you're not going after the person that you're trying to attract and trying to speak to with the way that you are appearing, then you know what? You're going to lose the game, right? And then that's the first part. The second part is there are stages where you are, and there are different phases of life. So the first thing is that you would never see me in a hoodie or in a t-shirt for a long time. But then now, this book, I've promoted this book every single day, multiple times a day since the start of this year and perhaps before that. But I'm often like without a shirt or in a t-shirt. I was in a suit once. I went on national TV both times. Never wore a suit. Because the message of the book is who I am, and it's about freedom. It's about financial freedom. I travel the world. I'm never in a suit. So it makes no sense for me to be in a suit to promote the book, because then it would be contrasting. I am
Right.
also speaking to people who are not wanting to wear suits either, because they don't want to be stuffy people in banks. No, they want to spend time with their kids who are at the sports game, and you don't want to be the person at the sports game in a suit. Doesn't make sense. So then it's all intentional. So then I will say, at different phases of life, that time was a different phase because of who I was trying to speak to with my clothes. So my message and who I'm trying to speak to are very different. So then obviously it will change.
I think to your point, at some point, your credibility is your reputation, not the clothing or outward projection that you send to the world. And
Absolutely.
I think to your point, I think you dress for the role and the audience that you are trying to resonate with, and that's okay. I feel
Right.
like in today's society, there is this rigidity around being who you are all the time or it's fake. But what if there are many versions of you within yourself that show up and come forward depending on the task that you're trying to achieve? And to your point, when you first start at 15, you need that credibility. And now, as a two-time best-selling author, you can show up in a hoodie and people listen because you earn that right. And
Right.
those people are still Kadeem.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a skill to be able to switch, right? To who you are depending on who you're talking to. I will tell you, as a Jamaican, Jamaicans love to party. And if you listen to Jamaican music, I know every lyric. I grew up in Jamaica. But then if I were to go onto Oprah, that's not the person that you'll see there. If you won't see me on, Stephen Colbert or, Seth Meyers or one of these guys, David Letterman, he retired a long time ago. But you won't see me on these shows, the same person that you'll see in a Jamaican party. It just won't be the same person. And that's okay. You're allowed to do that because of the message that you're trying to portray. But you're still the same person. And if someone shows you a video, hey, is this you in Jamaica? Yes. Yes, it is me. And is this you on Oprah? Of course, it is me. Then it's the same person, but the message, you have to be able to have that skill and separation. It is a skill.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Let me ask you, you mentioned stocks. You started businesses and then you realized, okay, all the wealthy people are in stocks. How did you learn about what stocks are, how to get into them, and what led to that transition into getting into stocks?
Reading was a pivotal act. Reading is still one of the best habits. I will tell you. The number one habit in all of my portfolio companies, and we do a lot of money every single month, every single year. Number one habit that pushes the needle for all of our portfolio is me reading every day. The number one. The reason why it works, and learning, or even if it's an audiobook, the reason why it works is because the ideas that you read and you get to implement that day are what moves the companies forward or what moves the portfolio forward. Hey, let's try this. Hey, what if we try this next year? What if we write this down and this becomes a 5 year plan. Now the 5 year plan becomes more refined, or maybe the 15-year plan becomes more defined, or the next quarter becomes more accurate. Now we have better data. But then also, what you're doing is that you're taking your brain to the gym when you're reading. So then now your brain remains sharp instead of becoming lethargic. Just means lazy. If you train your brain to keep going, then all of your ideas are now flowing from a place that's active. You can imagine having an active brain and have an active garden, the better flowers are going to come from that garden, so to speak. So then reading is one of those habits. And going back to obviously being 15, 16, 17, growing up in a place where there weren't people around me talking about finances, that meant that I had to find people that weren't next to me. And I found those people in books, found those people on YouTube. I found those people in the UK, in Australia, in New York, in California, in Miami. They didn't have to be next to me, but I had to spend hours with them and they became my mentors without them even knowing I existed. Very important. And so then, for example, one of my first series I ever read was John C. Maxwell. John C. Maxwell is one of the leading authorities on leadership in the world. He's written literally dozens of books and I've read dozens of them, right? And when I started doing that, is that I realized most people have never studied leadership. But then now at 18, I know so many of the people around me who are supposed to be leaders or managers, they're breaking so many of the rules. So I know I'm a better leader than most of these people. But then I understood what leadership was. That leadership is influence. Leadership is not a title. Because I'm sure you know someone in your office, I'm sure you know someone in your family life, in your community, that they're not the manager, they're not the person with the title. But if that person says, hey, could you do this for me? Everybody there would do it. That's influence, and you can't buy that. Books like John C. Maxwell shows you how to build those things intentionally, which is a skill that you're not born with. It's something that you develop. That's something that you have to acknowledge. That's great. But then reading books. And then, so after you start reading books and you start finding all of these implementations around, now you actually start asking questions because at the time, we actually had paper stocks. You actually had to go and find somebody to be a broker. You couldn't just download an app and get started. That didn't exist, right? So then now I had to go find information. I had to carve out time out of the day because remember I was in school from Monday to Friday. But then now I had to like leave school early one day to be like, okay, I don't have school today, or they're giving me a break or something. Now I'm taking off school to go and find out more about stocks by the broker. And they're saying to me, wait, aren't you like 17 years old? I was like, yeah, but don't worry about that. We have questions. And when you're young, people are very open to talking to you. But it's very cool like once you can just have this type of mindset that you're going to go out and try to make it happen for yourself, a lot can happen.
How did that lead you to buying your first stock? What did you invest in? What have you learned through that experience?
Right. So out of those businesses, right? So I tell this story in full money. I went broke twice. So didn't have anything. I started businesses. These businesses started doing well, but then I moved to college, lost everything again. So I had to start over. And then I found real estate cool. But before I moved to college, I was a music teacher. So then I had some money saved up. I took all that money and I said, you know what? I'm going to start a stock broker account, this investment firm in Jamaica. So then I went and bought my first stock. I think it was just a company that I knew about. I loved, for example, sweets at the time, sweeties like candy. So then I went and bought stocks in that company. And I think there's another company, it was an entertainment company. They were a new kid on the block. They had just went public. And so then I went to actually buy their stock as well. In fact, in the last couple of chapters of the book, it talks about a strategy that I was using. And one of the strategies is that companies were going public. And then if you got in pre-IPO, the stock would triple so it came out. So then I did that play like 5 or 6 different times. So then I was doubling or tripling my money every time. No, I thought I was a genius, but that didn't last long, obviously. After that stopped working, then I started to do more research. Okay, how do I actually keep this going? How do I find a good way, a good method to sustain my wealth over a long period of time and not rely on this one strategy that can work sometimes? And then obviously that's where the best of the book came in. But that's what actually happened. And that got me stocks really early because then I was able to see quick success, in a very small manner, but quick success. I was able to see that this was actually able to pull money out of thin air. That was very cool for me.
You mentioned you bought stocks in Jamaica. Are they exclusive to Jamaica or are they a worldwide thing? Or can you tell me about that?
But you can. There are companies. So most developing or countries that have some sort of stable economy. So like you can think Trinidad has a stock exchange. Grenada has a stock exchange. Most developing countries have stock exchanges. Singapore, the Ghana, they have stock exchanges. They're just not as big, obviously, as the United States. So in Jamaica, most people are actually trying to get to the New York Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq and trying to compete on the global level. But what you'll find is that local stock exchanges can give you a lot of room to grow as well. For example, the real estate in Jamaica is one of the best in the world because it's an island. Then obviously that's not stocks. But if you're thinking about investment class, it doesn't necessarily mean that because you're in the US, the market is bigger, means that you're making the best returns on your money, right? When you can imagine, there is no IPO that would have consistently done 2 or 3x in America. That doesn't happen. But that was happening in my lifetime in Jamaica. So just give you a case in point. Many people made millions of that, made millions of dollars off of that play alone. Cool, cool. But then it's possible for you to be in the United States and invest in Jamaica. It's also possible for you to be in Jamaica and invest in the States. I didn't have enough to invest in the States at the time, which is why I was only in Jamaica. Now, once I did, now I'm in global markets. Now we have stocks all over the world, in multiple countries. So that's not a problem. But at the time, it wasn't the case. That's why I started there.
So many people have a fear of the stock market in that, number one, they feel like if they invest, they can't touch the money forever. And there's this conception that you got to be 60 and retired to be able to access the funds. And if you pull it out, you're going to get, half your money's going to be gone. Or you can invest and then just like that, all your money is gone. And so there's this fear around the stock market. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and what your opinion is?
Okay, sure. So I'm gonna give you guys some secrets today, right? We're gonna learning this for the culture. I'm gonna give you guys a gift today because we have time to sit down today. So it's really gonna be good. Most people make this mistake when they're going after stocks. They are thinking about money in the wrong way because school doesn't teach the eighth wonder of the world, which is compound interest. Here's an easy rule for you to remember. Every 7 years, your money will double. Every 7 years, your money will double. Just think about it that way. Okay. So then now, if you're trying to invest for 14 years, right, decade and a half, then your money only gets to go to 4x. But then if you wait for 50 years, how many doubles is that? 49, 28x, 28x. But then let's say you're just doing $10,000. Multiply $10,000, 128x. You see how much money that is?
Yeah.
That's an insane amount of money. And then you might be thinking, okay, how do I get those type of returns over a long period of time? This is what I talk about in the book. I'll give it to you here. But then there's one secret I'll tell you. If you are looking for investments, you want to look at a past highest probability. What you're looking for. I don't pick stocks, by the way. I don't tell anybody to pick stocks. They're ETFs and they're index funds. Now, there are ETF exchange traded funds, which means that, for example, instead of you trying to find Apple or trying to find Amazon or trying to find Facebook, all you're going to do is buy this ETF, and that ETF holds Nvidia, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Tesla, Google, Microsoft, all of the top companies in the world, Salesforce, Adobe, you name it. Holds it, and you only need to buy one thing. And guess what? If something underperforms, they remove it. So you don't have to do anything. And if something goes very good, they put more of it in there for you. Great. People are doing this for you for next to nothing. Not free, but it's next to nothing. It's literally cheaper than anything out there, and they're called ETFs. But one of my favorite ETFs is VONG. Now, if you're on your computer right now, I want you to look up what VONG has done for the past 15 years, 20 years, in the past 10 years, which means that it survived 2008, survived 2020, survived 2018, and survived 2022. Do you think it would probably survive the next thing? Yeah, probably. Look at how much it's done every single year. The average rate of return for VONG is more than 15%. Imagine if you held that.
What is average rate of return? Over what time?
The average rate of return means every year. So some years it will do 30, some years it will do 10. But over the course of that period, it has done 15% every single year on average. Imagine if you had your money. No, they tell you, right, that the stock market does 10% every year. It's true, on average, right? So some years it does more, some years it does less, right? No problem. Some years it will lose money, and it will make that up in a couple of years later. No problem. What it means, though, is that if you're holding not for 2 years, for 49 years, for 30 years, for 15 years, and you're doing 15% a year, that is an insane amount of money. But most people are only going to see the next 18 months. The sooner you start, the more that compounding can happen. Because let me tell you how the math works. The first $100,000 may take you, okay, so let's say that takes you, I don't know the math for this exactly, but I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say it's over 20 cycles. The first $100,000 might take you up until year 16. Then the next might take you up until year 18. So it took you 16 years to get to 100K. Then cycle 18, 2 years, is the next 100K. Then between 18 and 20, it's 400K. That's what compounding looks like if I were to illustrate it, because it looks like this, then it goes like this, then it goes like this. You understand?
Yeah.
But most people don't get to this part, so they don't see it. Because what people don't understand is that 90% of Warren Buffett's wealth, and he's worth over $100 billion, spent after his 50th birthday. And he's been investing since he was 12 years old. At the end, compounding gets ridiculously fun. It just sucks at the beginning. So then you have to get through that part as fast as you possibly can, with as much money as you can, so that you can enjoy the last part. But the last part in time is coming, because you're going to be 50 years old anyway. You're going to be 60 years old anyway. Now, you can either have compounding working for you or against you with piles of debt, which is what most Americans are going through anyway.
Some people might listen to this and say, well, what good does that do me? If I'm paycheck to paycheck and then I start investing and I'm not going to see that money until I'm over 50 years old or 60 years old, how am I going to live now?
Of course, there's a couple of things. The easiest way to change your life is to understand that you need to start a business. Oh, if you say you don't have time, it's not about time, it's about priority. That's one. Because if you had an emergency, for example, let's say there was a plumbing emergency in your house, and the entire basement was flooded, would you find the time to deal with it? Yes, that's it. I just prove to you that you have time. Doesn't matter what's happening. If your basement is flooded, you're going to deal with it. That's time that you say you didn't have. Cool. That's the first thing. Then you have time. So I'm not even going to argue that. To start a business, these are solvable problems. What can you do as a business right now? The first business for most people is just selling your time. You have expertise in something, sell that expertise to someone else. I was a music teacher. I was a great musician. I sold that to people. I can help you to be a better musician because I'm brilliant, teach you how to do it. If you are a coffee barista, teach people how to make coffee. You know photography, teach people how to do photography. Stop overcomplicating it. You already have skills. Teach someone how to do it who is not as good as you. That's it. You don't need to be at chapter 100 to be able to teach someone chapter 1. You just need to be at chapter 3 to get them to chapter 2. That's it. Whatever skills that you have where you feel that you are more than chapter 3, teaching people who are at chapter 1. Oh, outside of skills, you might be thinking, if there's something that you overcame in your life, let's say you got through a bad breakup, teach that to someone. You got into the school of your dreams, teach that to someone. You went through divorce, teach that to someone. You start traveling, teach that to somebody. You see how many businesses I just gave you? Now, how are you going to teach this to someone? You can do it in person. You can do it through courses. You can do it through YouTube. Right? You can go on Facebook groups. You can say, hey, I'm hosting a free class. 20 people show up who start with you. First 5 classes for free. When the time you get to the 6th, now you start paying. You can go onto Fiverr, teach people. Sarah, teach people. You want anything that is solved for you? You can start your business tomorrow. PPT can help you with the logo. It can help you with the scripts. It can help you to market. There's no excuse today. Of this, I just showed you how to make money out of thin air using exactly what you have right now. That's the first thing. I'm not saying that you need to go and buy equipment. Didn't say any of that. You start making money with what you have right now. You already have it. Doesn't that sound easy?
Absolutely. You
Simple.
mentioned
Not easy. Sorry. Simple.
Yeah, simple. Nothing good ever comes easy. You mentioned you learned how to be a leader. Tell me, what makes a good leader?
Well, I'll defer that to John C. Maxwell, but I will tell you, can be summed up in one pretty easy sentence. A good leader gets other people to do things that they want to do. I'm not trying to convince you to do something. The thing that you're about to do, I want to show you why it's in your best interest to do it. That's a good leader. And you think of that can be a powerful skill, and it's a powerful skill. It can be used for bad or it can be used for good. You see when it's used for bad because you can convince millions of people to do very bad things, but it's still leadership. And you can convince millions of people to do great things, still leadership. And that's the skill.
Couldn't agree more. You now own multiple businesses. You're not 17 anymore. Tell us how you went from being that kid who's starting all these different businesses, figuring out how to get into stocks, to the man that you are today.
Okay, so stocks is not where you should start. I would say that for anybody who's starting. Now, if you're going to day trading is an income. It's not investments or assets, right? So I just need to set that in the proper context. You can day trade for income, but any day trader will tell you this is a job and you need to put your day trading money into long-term investments or real estate or business. So don't just stop at day trading. That doesn't work, right? So it's income, assets, investments, the lifestyle. Don't skip the middle two. Day trading is income. The first. Investing takes the longest. As we described, it takes sometimes decades. If you have more money, it can get you there faster. Real estate takes the second fastest. You can get there in maybe, 15 to 20 years. No problem. So then if you're 30 right now, you can start with real estate. You can have a great portfolio by the time that you're 50. Great, no problem. Businesses, cash flow. You can buy businesses or you can build them. For example, if you're teaching your skill, your upside is nearly 100% because your time, you already have it. And the cost to fulfill these orders is nearly 100% because it's just your time. Which means that now if someone pays you $10,000 for you to do something, which is a skill, you get to keep that entire $10,000 pretty much, unless you have like software, etc. But it's the entire $10,000 for you. So then businesses have this function. Lots of the best businesses in the world have similar margins. It's not nearly 100%, but it's like 50 or 30. Amazon, which is products, their profit margin I think is maybe like 3 or 4%, very low. But Facebook, 30%. Great. Right? That's why they'll be around for a very long time, right? Because their profit margins are so high. Businesses are very great. It's the long and short of it. Businesses is where you need to start. So then I always start with businesses. Now here's the thing. Many entrepreneurs will get into this thing of not having enough money, which is actually why we talked about understanding credit. So I think we should get into that.
Mhm.
Let's talk about credit a little bit. So in America, credit runs everything. And most people actually don't understand how credit works. Like, let's actually start from the top, right? So if you're watching, probably you already know that there are three credit bureaus, and it's Equifax, TransUnion, and what's the third one? Equifax, TransUnion, and help me with it. What's the third one? Sometimes that slips my mind. Experian. There you go.
Experience. Yeah.
Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. Brain fart. It's fine. So there are three different bureaus, but your credit score on each of these bureaus is between 300 to 850. Now, once you're over 720, you have pretty much a good credit score. You can get most things. Of 780, you can pretty much get anything. Caveat, it depends on the rest of your credit profile. Now, this is on the personal side. We're only going to talk about that first. So I'm giving you some education here first, right? So we're setting the background. Above 720, you can get most things. Above 780, you can get nearly anything. Yep. So when I talk about your credit profile, people might have a 730 credit score, but they only have 2 credit cards. Now, remember, your credit profile is meant to signal to the bank that you have a trustworthiness when it comes to money. That's what you're trying to prove. If you give me $100,000, I'm not going to go out and buy a Lamborghini with it. If you give me $100,000, I'm going to put it to a business that makes $100,000 every couple of months, if not every couple of weeks or days. Right? That's what you're trying to convince the bank to do. So then, well, we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're talking about business and we're talking about personal credit. But I think you get the point. You're trying to convince the bank that you are responsible with money. If you only have 2 credit cards and someone else has the same credit score as you, but they have 15 credit cards, who's more responsible? The person with 15.
Credit cards. Oh yeah.
Easy. Most people understand. But then
Yep.
if you have only 1 or 2 credit cards or 1 or 2 payments or 1 or 2 loans, you're not very reliable. If someone has only a credit profile that's 1 year old and someone else has the same score, but their credit profile is 15 years old, who's more responsible? If someone has the same score as you, let's say it's 720, but one person has 1 missed payment and you have none, you are more responsible. It's not that complicated to see why banks have the score in the way that they do, because they want to make sure that you're going to pay on time, that you have a history of being responsible, and you're using multiple cards responsibly or multiple accounts. So it's not just credit cards, because we have loans, we have revolving credit, and we also have charge cards. We have also fixed, I'm forgetting these terms, but we also have fixed payments. So for example, a fixed payment would be you get a personal loan and you have to pay, for example, $1,000 every single month, as opposed to a credit card where the amount that you pay might fluctuate. Cool. We understand. So then you want to have many different types of credit, multiple different accounts for many different years with no missed payments and no derogatory remarks. Very simple. So we understand. That would put you on a credit card or credit score above 720. Cool. So now that's on the personal side. Then what happens, most people understand this, if you get a $10,000 card and you use $9,000 out of it, what happens to your personal credit score?
Straight down to the trash.
Straight down.
Down the
Now,
toilet.
even if you pay it off the next month, that's going to show on your credit card. It's going to show on your report, even if it's temporary. For that month, it's going to show that your credit utilization is very high. And that card, at least, is 90%, right? Then now we have a problem, because even if we get $50,000 and we need to run a business, and let's say in 1 month, even if it's going to be covered in the next month, we need to spend 90% of that limit, we can't go ahead and get more money because the personal side is limiting. That is why we move to business credit, because business credit allows us to move a lot faster. Stay with me.
Speaking of business credit, Just really quick before we get into all of that. Number one, so many people feel like business credit is impossible to get. And I know that you're about to tell us why it's not impossible to get. But number two, can the average person just go get a business loan? And how do they do that?
Absolutely, you can. Okay, so then let's talk about answer that question through personal credit first. Can the average person get personal loan? Answer is no. But can the average person get a $500 credit limit on a credit card? Yeah. Can the average person afford a mortgage? No. It depends.
As a
It depends very much.
person, I would debate. It depends on
Right.
your debt to income is really
It
what it depends
does.
on. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you see, now we have different criteria for different things. There's no debt to income ratio when it comes to getting a $500 limit credit card. Most anybody can get that. Just give that out to teenagers who have no credit history at all. So then it depends on what you're going for, because going all the way up from we have mortgages, then we have personal loans, then we have credit cards, and we have secured credit cards. These are different tiers of applying for bank products. They're all money. All of them is just money, but there are different criteria for each one. But then let's bring this criteria and this understanding over to the business side. It's the same thing. There are lines of credit that are secured by absolutely nothing. For example, if you are Elon Musk and you go to Bank of America and you say, hey, I need $5 billion secured by, the stars and the moons and the sun, right? Bank of America will probably say, yeah, well, yeah. We can't give you 5 billion, but we can give you 1.2 billion. What that sound? Because you're Elon Musk. Okay, sure, cool, no problem. And you sign, signature, it's Elon Musk, right? He gets it. And we do that. No, we can't do that. But you have that for the very wealthy in the world. So then you have lines of credit that are secured by stocks, by assets, etc., by reputation, no problem. They do that. Below that, when you have businesses, you have assets, you have lines of credit that are secured by the assets in the business. So you have to sign them away. Below that, you have lines of credit that are secured just by cash flow. So your last couple of years of tax returns, right? Then you have credit cards, right? Then below that, you might have, lines of credit are a lot smaller. So for example, instead of your credit card limit being $50,000, it might be secured and you might have to apply for something that's only, $2,000, $3,000. But these are all different tiers of credit. And obviously we understand this in grade school. You are working your way up the ladder to get from one to the next, to the next, to the next. But if you can't get here, you don't start there then. You start here. And if you can't start here, here is still waiting for you, right? Then there are many people who will come to me and they're already on level 2. Perfect. Many people who are already, they've been at level 2 for a while and they're ready to get to level 3, which is why they come to me. No problem. There are some people who they don't even know that one exists. We start them there too, right? So can anybody apply for business credit? Most people who are watching have babysat, cut someone's lawn, and walked someone's dog, or some other businesses out there. If you've ever done any of these things, congratulations, you're a business owner. You just haven't filed the paperwork. That's it. You haven't filed the paperwork, but according to the US government, you are a business owner because that is an act of business that you were paid for. But then let's talk about how you actually do that. There's a couple of things. One, you have to start the LLC. The LLC, now we can get to S Corp, C Corp, and partnership, but for most people, an LLC will be enough. But I'm just going to get your feet wet, get you into the game. But if you want to take this to a new level, I suggest that you email me. Reach me at thefullauthor.com. I got you.
What's an LLC?
Limited liability company. But then many ways to do this, depending on your state, it costs between, I think Massachusetts is the most expensive, which is $550. The cheapest, I think, is $45, which is, I think, like Maine. But the average is about 100 and something.
Why do I need it?
Why do you
what
need it?
benefit does it
Perfect.
have?
Because a limited liability company is the foundation for everything that we have in America as it relates to business. Because what it does, it means that if your business fails, you don't go to jail. That's what it means. Which means now you can take risk. Now you can take on debt. And if the company fails, you don't die.
So if
Now,
I have an LLC and I've never walked dogs or cut grass or picked up poop under that LLC, how does that LLC have credibility that the banks then listen to me?
well, you can start a new LLC. That's fine. So then I'll actually get to solving that problem in a second because
Okay.
that's a great question. But the point is that most people already have a business. You just need to formalize it. And you can do that by going online. I recommend people to use one of the tools out there. So there are online tools like Busy or InkFile or any of these that they will file the LLC for you and you just pay them to do it. So it's a little bit more expensive than just filing the state fee. For example, if it's Massachusetts, which is 550, then they'll maybe charge you an extra 50, and you can get the entire thing done for $600. If it's a cheaper state, let's say it's 120, and they'll charge you maybe $30 more, you can get the entire thing done for 120. Whichever one you choose, they'll walk you through the steps. Very simple. After you do
Is
that,
a
though,
one-time process?
one-time
put it in
process.
your- Okay.
One-time process. You do have to. There's some taxes thing that you have to do, but you only register your LLC once, of course. So then, after you register your LLC, you're going to go ahead and do your EIN. Your EIN is free. You have a social security number as your person. Your employer identification number is free. You go to irs.gov and get your EIN. And they will ask you what your LLC is called. You get your EIN completely free. That EIN, very important. The step that most people miss after this when it comes to funding is that you want to take those two documents and you want to go over to Dun& Bradstreet, DNB, and you're going to fill out the same information on Dun & Bradstreet. You don't need to pay for anything, but it's completely free. And Bradstreet is the credit reporting agency, the largest in America for businesses. And if you're applying, well, we talked about different tiers. When you get up here, they're looking at your Paydex score. Down here can make, no problem, I'll get to you in a second. But your Paydex score will get you to higher levels. So then now, if you're starting to borrow money and it's not secured against your personal credit score, it's secured against your business assets and your business credit score alone. So you have no, if the business fails, that's nothing to do with you. Over here, that's your Paydex score and it's out of 100. If you're above 80, you're great. That's all you need to remember. If you're above 80, you're fantastic. But then the sooner you start your Paydex score, the better. Because I think it's under 6 months, you don't have any Paydex score. Even if you started your business right now, you wouldn't have a Paydex score for another 6 months. I think it's 6 months, could be 3 months, one of the two. But it's not going to be immediate, is my point. It takes some time. But then the sooner you start your Paydex score, which is why it's EIN, it's LLC, EIN, and then your Dun & Bradstreet number right after. But then now when you're going to banks and they ask you, hey, what's your LLC name? What's your EIN? What's your Dun & Bradstreet number? Guess what? You'll have it. And the guy who didn't listen to this podcast and they don't have that Dun & Bradstreet number, guess what? They're going to say, okay, no problem. We'll just move on with the application because they didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So your Paydex score. Here's the interesting thing. So we're covering a lot. We're covering a lot. So here's the interesting thing about your Paydex score. Remember that we talked about this one problem that on the personal side, where if you max out your card, pretty much, then your score tanks. It's very different on the business side. Because businesses spend money. It's very common for businesses to spend a lot of money, right? So you're calculated very differently on the Paydex score. And also, if you max out a business credit card, guess what? Not your personal credit score. Different things. Then let's say you have $250,000 on the business side and you spend $150,000 out of it. That has nothing to do with your personal score, which means that you can still go ahead and get a mortgage if you want to.
So is the Paydex essentially your business credit score?
It is your business credit score, precisely. Now,
is it made up by usage or made up by money coming in and out of the LLC? How is that determined?
All of the above. So there are different factors. So the personal credit, we talked about a couple of factors. You want to show that you are responsible. That's not the question on the business side. The business Paydex score, they want to see that you pay on time. That won't change. But then if you pay early, so then let's say something is due on the 15th and you routinely pay on the 5th, you're going to have a great high Paydex score. You're going to have a very high Paydex score. So then just pay early. That's the first thing. Second, they want to see how much you are paying back in comparison to what you owe. And if you owe $100,000, but you're only paying back $500 every single month, not good. If you owe $100,000, you pay off 50, use 50, pay off 50, use 50, that's great. Keep doing that because that's the amount of that you're paying each month is very important. That's important.
Can you get a business loan without a Paydex score?
Very unlikely. Very unlikely. Now you can. They will just ask for more things. So, for example, what they'll ask for is your business tax. They'll ask for your 2 years of tax history. They'll ask for maybe the last 12 months of bank statements, or maybe 3 to 12 months of bank statements. They'll ask for a lot more. But your Paydex score can do the talking because it shows already the cash flow in your company. If you are paying on time and you're paying a lot of money, your Paydex score is going to be high. But then if you have a Paydex score of 99, they're not going to ask you for as much. But if you have no Paydex score, you're going to have to prove that you know what you're talking about. We want to see everything.
If you can't get a loan, how are you supposed to generate a Paydex score?
Because we have tiers. So let's go back. Let's take it back, right? So we're not talking about business loans. We're talking about business credit cards, which is great. Okay. So then now we know we have steps, right? So on the business, so you asked me a question, can anyone get business credit? The actual answer is yes. As long as you have a great credit score, which is where it starts, you can start your business credit journey. So I'll actually walk you through how to do that. I'll start you off, right? As I said, we have people come to us and take us to a different level, which is what I recommend you do. because I don't want you to do it the wrong way, right? Right? But I start you off in business credit. Here's how it works. Then let's say now you've worked on your personal credit. You've come to me, we've talked, we've got your personal credit to over $50,000 and you're only using 1%. And now you have a credit score of 760 and you have an average credit history of 5 years. Great. Looking good. Great account. So then now you're going to go over to the personal, from the personal to the business side. So now we're on the business side. Okay. Well, here's the business. That's why it's full money. Okay. So we're on the business side. On the business side, you're going to go to American Express. And American Express has two business cards that are 0% interest for 12 months. And they're made for new businesses. And there's no annual fee. It's American Express Blue Business and Blue Business Plus, Blue Business Cash. That 5 times fast. Blue Business Plus, Blue Business Cash. Cool? Two cards. No, you don't get them at the same time because that's 12 months each of 0% interest. But then, if you're timing it right, 2 years. Free money that you can use. Now, when I say free, they're not charging you interest. You still have to pay it back. And you still have to pay each month on the minimum balance due, but they're not charging you interest, which means that you now have money to use in your business. But what could you buy if American Express went and they gave you for that first card, let's say they gave you $5,000. What could you buy with that $5,000? Remember, not using your money, you're using American Express's money. What could you buy with that $5,000, 0% interest for 12 months? Vending machine business was Warren Buffett's first business. Maybe you could start an Airbnb. Maybe you could start selling things from downtown. Buy some candy. Maybe you could start your corner shop. Start your retail store. Doesn't matter. Point is, now you have money on the business side. Now, the good thing is that this is the first tier because American Express actually doesn't report to Paydex. So we actually have to get Depot.
Oh no.
Chase does. No, it's fine. We get there. Chase Bank does. Bank of America does. Wells Fargo does. So many other banks do. So now we're starting on the business side. American Express is great because it's the first layer. Even though it doesn't report to Paydex, it does get you into the business side of not reporting to the personal, right? It's one of the easiest to get into, which is why I talk about it all the time. But then now we have Chase, we have Bank of America, we have Navy Federal. Now we're going into the business side a bit more. Now, once you're having these business cards, guess what? You're going to start racking up $5,000 here in this business card, $5,000 here, $10,000 here. Now, why are they giving you such high limits? Because businesses don't spend like people do. People buy TVs and refrigerators and shoes and purses or whatever. People do. Buy vending machines. They buy leases, right? They buy equipment. And this equipment, why are they buying equipment? They're buying equipment to make them more money. And if I give you $5,000, as a business owner, you're likely to go and say, hey, how can I pay off this $5,000 as quickly as possible? Because that's what businesses do. At least that's what good businesses do, right? And that's what you're aiming to be, a great business owner. So then now, on the business side, you're getting higher limits. Let's say your personal credit, which is why we started over here. Let's say your average credit card limit is $15,000. Let's say you come to me, my first credit card was $500, 100 on the personal side. Oh, I don't get offers for credit card less than $20,000 on the personal side. Doesn't happen, right? I could open up my Chase app and show you that, American Express, same thing. It's always 20. That's what it is. But my first credit card ever was 500. And now, let's say you have all of these cards over here that are average 10, 15, 20,000. You go over to business credit and you say, hey, American Express, could I get a card? They say, okay, cool. 1 second. Let me just connect with Equifax. Get Mr. Equifax on the phone. Let me just get Mr. Experian on the phone, right? Let me just get TransUnion on the phone. These are the personal credit bureaus. Let me just get one of them on the phone. Let me call them. Let me just check with them how your personal credit is. And they go over there. They call them. They say, hey, Mr. Equifax, how you doing? Good day. And they say, you know what? I trust Kadeem. He's a good dude. I would recommend that you give him 15 because we gave something $15,000 and he's been doing good. The American Express is like, oh, you did that? All right, we got you. I won't give him 15, but I'll give him 12 because you said he's good. So then they just gave you $12,000 because your personal credit is good. So it starts. No, American Express, they gave you 12. You do that properly. And guess what? Your next credit card from American Express, is that going to be $15,000? No, they're going to give you another $12,000. You see how this works?
Yeah.
And now remember, you just started and your entire portfolio on your personal side is $50,000. And your first credit card over here is 12. So it works. Then now if you have 3 or 4 or 5 credit cards, very quickly you can see that your business credit is going to be here and your personal credit will be here. That's how it is for most people, which is how your business credit can move into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it works. And you start with credit cards.
So step one, Amex. After you've had that Amex for 6 months, a year or so, would you say, you then go and apply for Chase, Wells Fargo, somebody who reports to, what was it, Deepex?
Paydex, got you. So it may or may not, so that depends, right? So then there's an art and a science to building your credit profile on the personal and the business side. It's an art and a science. But here's what I'll tell you. People say that they can't, use credit to make money. You can turn credit into cash. It's very simple. First, I'll give you even another play. You can use your credit to go and buy cars from auction. Do you know this? Buy cars from auction using your credit card, which means that you can start a car rental company or a car leasing company to Uber drivers, and you can use advertise, you can put advertisements on the car, and you can go ahead for that car. Each advertisement, let's say 200 here, 200 here, 200 there, 2 doors, and on the front, $600, and then you're paying the Uber driver is giving you $1,000. Right, every 2 weeks they're paying you $1,000, and now maybe let's say you have two Uber drivers, one in the morning, one in the evening. How much money is that coming in from one car that you bought on a credit card? You bought it on a credit card. That's more than some people are making going to work 9 to 5. And you just did that using a credit card.
How do you do that when you have the fear of, okay, well, I'm going to start this business, but I have to make these payments? How do you navigate that, right? Because you don't have a guaranteed income when you first start a company.
Right. So then that's why everything starts with income. So then there are two things. One, I would never start a new business using credit. That's one. But at least have some guidance, which is why I recommend investing into someone or finding someone, learning from someone who has done it before you, and then following their steps. Whether it's free or paid, doesn't matter. You need to follow their steps. First thing. A second, this all started with income. May I remind you, it's income to assets, to investments, to lifestyle. That's the point of income. It doesn't matter if you're a barber, you're an NBA player, doesn't matter. So some people, their first asset will be a hotel. Your first asset might be a vending machine. They're still assets. So then maybe the NBA player can start with hotels. The music teacher, he can start with vending machines. He can start with a lemonade stand. He can start with this small, it doesn't matter. The point is that you're starting at your level, but understand that the math is still the same, right? So then I'll give another answer to that question. Most people understand that you can use the credit card and you can pay. How do you meet that monthly payment? So one, if you have 0% interest for 12 months, let's say you take out $10,000, the monthly payment is going to be about 1% of that. That's what the monthly payment is. 1% of $10,000 is only $100. Now, I'm going to take out my glasses so you can see my face very clearly. If you cannot meet $100, you just took out $10,000 to start a business. Don't go any further. You hear me? If you can't meet $100 and you just took out a $10,000 loan, for the first 12 months, that's all they're going to charge you. $100, and you just took out $10,000 to go put the car on the road. Remember, you should be generating cash at this point. By month 6, by month 4, you should be doing something. Remember, you already have income. If you cannot meet that $100 payment, just $100, don't start. That's not good.
You said income, step one. You say something like you can get 10 grand and pay $100 a month. That's tempting. That makes me want to go open a $10,000 credit card, start a coffee company, and pay $100 a month and gamble on my $100 and see if I can make more than $100 and the supplies and costs and X, Y, and Z to run that business. What do you say to that? Is that a risk you should take if you don't have an income, you don't have an established business, but you really want to, and you're like, you know what? I got $100 out of my personal money I can spare to cover that cost. And I really want to start a business, but I don't have the 10 grand to start the business.
Okay, so we have to manage risk here. So then I'll be very clear. If you have income already, don't leave your job to start the business. Start your business and use your job to fund your business. That's how you do that. You're using your job to fund your business. Then if you don't need debt, don't use debt. Start your coffee company. But here's what's interesting about debt. Debt is a multiplier of existing cash flow, which is why if you can prove that there is cash flow, which is why if you're using someone else's system to make money, then that's already proven cash flow. You can see it makes money, use their system, follow that system to a T. If you don't know what you're doing and you have no proof of cash flow, then don't do that. Debt multiplies existing cash flow, but you cannot multiply zero, right?
Right.
Very easy. And if you're working with someone who understands coffee and you're saying, hey, you know what? If I could do this coffee thing with this person, they've done it several times before, or this is how they break it down and they have the entire thing broken down for you, then that's a very different level of risk. But then you're also backed up by your income and you're saying, you know what? I'm going to take out a credit card and see if I can not order in some supplies because I do need that upfront capital. And it's going to, let's say you want to order in some supplies from China. It's $5,000. Right? You're going to order in some supplies, put it in Amazon warehouse. The $5,000, you spend it up front. by 0% interest for 12 months. You're studying how to do Amazon sales. Even if you break even on that, you make half of that, would that $5,000 be worth it to spend? Yes. But I'm not saying that you should go out and spend $50,000. But if you have your income where, let's say you're earning $3 or $4 or $5,000 every single month anyway, and you say, okay, cool, I don't want to spend that money. I want to save that just in case, but I want to use credit to double my capacity. Then yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's if asterisk you're using a system where you have some type of idea of what you're doing.
What do you say to the person who says, I've got a day job, I want to start this coffee company, I've got an extra $300 a month, and I know how to make lattes, I've been doing it for a hobby for a while, and I want to start my own coffee cart. What would step one be for that person?
Teach people how to make coffee first. This is what's so interesting. When Amazon started, they didn't go out and buy a warehouse. It was operated out of his basement, out of the garage. Sorry. People think that you need to go out and then you need to start, stripping $5,000. You don't need to do that. I'm saying it's possible, but I'm also saying that you don't need to do that. You can make money just teaching people how to make coffee, right? So then every week you hold a session and it can be online. You go live and you teach people how to sell coffee. That can make you that $5,000. And then if it's your passion and you want to keep going and you want to get to the next stage, you can continue. But that's one way that you don't actually need to go ahead and get debt. Debt isn't necessary. It's a play and it's a tool that you can use. Understand that America was built using debt. Every single building that you can see, the iPhone that you have right now, the camera, all of it was funded by debt. Any public company, guess what? A public company, that's debt. That's a company saying, hey, public, we need your money, give us money, and we'll grow the company. That's what a public offering is. America was built by debt, but it doesn't mean that you need debt to start.
You mentioned a couple different businesses, Airbnb, vending machines, and then teaching courses, right? What would you suggest somebody get into if they're like, I don't really know where to start? What should I do to try to start my first business, to try to gain my own independence?
Of course. So I think I sort of answered that question already. It is whatever skill, whatever experience you have in your life, use that to teach people. So you mentioned courses. Courses are one way. You don't need to do courses. You can do content, you can do community. So there's actually many different formats that you can package your information to sell it to someone. So then, for example, in my music business, I never did courses ever, but I taught people in person. Then I also taught people in groups. So groups made more money there. And then I went to orchestras, made even more money there. 3 different tiers, same skill, same teaching. Didn't change the skill at all. Just 3 different groups, 3 different levels of the same pricing. Right? But for groups, you got to play less, but I made more money in the hour. For orchestra, same thing. You still paid less, I made more money in the hour. You can do the same thing. So you can have group classes online. You can have individual classes online. You can have a community where people pay you a monthly subscription to stay in that community, where you constantly give them value. So you go live every week and you constantly drop new recipes, for example. You can do that. And you can do a conference. You can do a PDF file, as I said before. There's many ways to sell your information. You can give information for free on YouTube and then get sponsorships to pay you. There's many ways to do this, but it's the information that you have in your head that can make you money. That's the point.
How do you determine it's time to expand? I've started and I've been doing these courses and I've gone to orchestra, and now where do I go from here?
$1 million. Any one of these things can get you to $1 million. After $1 million, you can think about expanding and doing something else.
What do you say when someone says, I'm just one person, how am I going to teach enough classes to make $1 million?
Got you. So you might have to change the way that you do this. $1 million a year is $80K a month. So let's start there. Okay. So you can sell, so let's say it's $80K, right? You can sell 8 people on something that costs $10,000 that they fulfill over 5 years.
Right.
Then who would buy something? Okay, let's say it's not coffee. Let's say I'm going to teach you how to market your business on social media or in Facebook groups. I'm going to teach you how to do clients. I'm going to actually get clients for you, and I'm going to be your partner for the next 5 years, and it costs $10,000. I'm going to show you how to get leads for your business. This is a podcast. I'm going to show you how to get podcast guests from celebrities. And it costs you $10,000 and you'll pay it over 5 years, right? No, there are literally millions of podcasts. So then, no, that's your target audience. Now you're selling other podcast owners. I will sell you this list of podcast guests and this method, which are proven for other people. Obviously, no, you have to go and prove that you can do it. But then now you're only looking for 10 people or 8 people to pay you $10,000 every month. Also, millions of podcast guests, just like you $1 million. And if you want to adjust the prices, okay, cool. Now you can, let's say it's $5,000, you can do in value. So here's the thing. When it comes to value, Price and value, you have to understand that value is always above price. So the only reason that you're going to pay me $10,000 is that I can show you how it's a deal for you because it's $10,000 over 5 years. But what you're going to get in value is perhaps $500,000 in value. It's only going to cost you 10. How much would you pay if I could get, not right now, but how much would you pay if I could get Malcolm Gladwell to come to your podcast in year 4?
$10,000.
Easy question.
Right.
You pay way more than $10,000. It's not going to happen right now, but if you listen to everything I say, I can get you Malcolm Gladwell in year 4. And I've done it twice already. Or someone similar, I've done it twice already. Here's the portfolio, here's a testimonial, boom. Oh, you get the testimonial, you do it for free for somebody else, then you pay the next person to do it. You do it free for 5 people, and you pay the next person to do it.
How did you use this philosophy to start your businesses, and what businesses do you currently own?
So we currently have 3 businesses. We have financial services platform, we have a real estate investment firm, and a property management company. So, education and stuff, sure, we have the books as well. But how is this a philosophy? It's doing the same thing for an extended period of time. You don't need to switch. Many people get bored long before the business actually matures and can make the maximum amount of money. I can do real estate for the rest of my life. So then I'm living proof that you can just do one thing and make a lot of money. You don't need to switch. You might get bored, but you can do the same thing, right? And I'll probably be in real estate for the next maybe 6 decades, right? Okay, cool. That's one. 2, so you actually, well, actually not 2, but to go back to something that you addressed before, you said the question before this was how to know, I forgot the question.
How do you know when to take it to the next level?
How do you know when to take it to the next level? Right. The next thing is when you hit a constraint in your business. So for example, there might be, you're no longer getting new customers, and you might be thinking, okay, my ads are no longer working. It might be that you need to relearn how you do ads. It also might mean that you need to switch from perhaps this channel that you're doing to a new channel. So for example, you might be doing cold calls. Instead, you actually need to switch to social media marketing, or you need to message people one-on-one, instead of just doing broadcast messages. That might be different tactics that you take. So you're switching the strategy, not switching the opportunity. Hope that makes sense. So then, for example, when I first started in real estate, I was only doing rooms, and I was doing maybe 2 or 3 nights. Right? But then now we have such a massive portfolio. We have people that are staying for weeks. We have people that are staying for years. We have rooms. We also have entire places. We also have villas. It's quite different now. But it's the same industry. Switching, you're expanding to different constraints to meet what's happening in the business. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. How did you get started in real estate?
Well, so I actually just touched on that. So I started in real estate by moving out of the room I was renting for college, moved onto the couch and rented the room. I had put the room on VRBO, on Airbnb, on Craigslist, on Facebook, and it was making more money. By month 3, it was making double what it cost me to actually stay in the room. So now I was making money by staying at home, which is very cool. That happened in college. Then I moved from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 bedrooms in the same room, in the same house over the next, 1 or 2 years. Then all that same 1 or 2 years, I also moved from one house to multiple houses because I was doing a great job. Of course, you have to do a great job. Now you start moving from 1 to 2 to 3 houses, you start getting recommended by friends, and then that's where it built up from there. Then now we have cash flow, can build the credit, get a call back. Now we can get business credit and actually grow the business credit and actually expand because now we have cash flow, we can do it again.
So how many properties do you own?
So we manage between 20, we manage above 25 right now. So maybe like 27, 28. Now, how much do I personally own? I own 4 units. Now, the rest of them is outright. So the rest of them are partnerships, deals, name on the title, etc., complicated stuff. But here's a very interesting study that most people don't know about. Did you know that McDonald's is a real estate company?
No, I didn't know that.
It owns more of its buildings than Marriott does by percentage.
Wow.
Did you know that?
No.
No.
That's crazy.
Why am I telling you this? Because you know Marriott as a real estate company.
Right.
They are not. They are a branding company. That's all they are. They don't own the buildings. Most of their buildings, they do not own them. McDonald's owns their buildings. And everywhere you see a McDonald's, it's prime real estate for them. The person who operates there, they're paying a lease to McDonald's because they're renting that place. Very cool. So McDonald's is more of a real estate company. People are seeing this on the opposite end. You might be thinking it's a restaurant company. No, it's not. On the other hand, the company that we think is a real estate company, Marriott, they're actually saying, hey, you can get the building. If you want us, we'll come, we'll check, we'll inspect, make sure it meets our standards, and then we will give you permission to use the Marriott brand. Then we'll add it to the website, we'll add it to all of the system, all of the points, all of our members, we'll get the perks, etc. We'll add it into our category, and you have permission now to use Marriott. Marriott doesn't own the building. The owner of the building pays Marriott a licensing fee to use Marriott. Now, why am I telling you this? Because the biggest real estate names you know in the world, they're not what you think they are. The idea of you owning is a very outdated way of thinking about real estate. What you want is control over as many places as possible. Airbnb being the biggest real estate company in the world, owning almost none. Marriott, same thing. Versus McDonald's is a bigger real estate company in terms of ownership than both of them.
With that, you said you own 4 properties, but you've got 25 in total. Is that correct?
More than 25, yes.
More than 25.
So
So you don't
sure,
own
go ahead.
them. Tell us.
No, not owning means not majority ownership, but go on.
Right. Tell us, how do you have control over 25 different properties?
The same way that Marriott does it. So if you actually study how Marriott does their licensing, is that they sign licensing deals for, let's say, a decade or 2 or 5 decades, right? So then for the next 5 decades, we'll give you permission to do this. You get out, here's the penalties, etc. But once you have control of a property, right, you outline, of course, this is how the property will be used, this is what it can be used for, this is what it can be used for, this is what we'll do, this is how much you'll get paid, this is how much we'll get paid, etc. That's all outlined in documents. So then now you can do this all over the world, which is what Marriott does, and you can get control of properties, and then you can make cash flow from all of these properties all over the world.
How did you do that in Airbnb? Are you renting the space, or you mentioned that you partner with people? Help me understand that.
Well, it depends. It depends on the deal. So I'll give you a couple examples. So on some, we have partnerships where it's 50-50, right? So then obviously that would depend on what you are controlling versus what I'm controlling, right? On the others, this is a flat rate that will pay you. You're going to cover utilities and we'll pay you a flat rate. Whatever utilities, that's not our concern. You cover utilities. Other deals will pay you a flat rate, but we'll cover utilities. Completely depends. Others, they are profit sharing. So then, for example, after we hit year 10, then we get this percentage of the property. Others are rent to own, for example. There are different ways that you can structure deals. The reason why I'm telling you this is because it's not as simple as this is one way to do it or this is another way to do it. It really does depend on the deal that's in front of you. Because what you might find is that the owner has different motivations that they won't go this way. For example, there are people, they don't care about the property. They don't even live in the state. They don't want to be called. For that, they're willing to let go a lot more control and give you as much control as you want. But there are people who this is their one of 2 properties for them, right? So they're going to be there every week, right? So it means a lot to them. So then it depends on what's going on. There are people who they want to walk with them and they want more of a partnership. So that's why we have 50-50 splits, 60-40 splits, 70-30 splits, 20 splits even. Completely depends on what's going on.
How do you choose an Airbnb and how do you choose a partner?
So we're not only on Airbnb. Airbnb is less than 50% of our business now. But I would tell you, how do you choose people? You want to have people that have great values. This is something that you learn. I think most business people learn this over time. You always want to have partners who have good values, right? Because you can always train skill. But if someone is a jerk, someone is selfish, someone is too anxious, they make emotional decisions, those are things that you can't really solve for. And you can't make a good deal with a bad person. You just can't. Then I think you should start from values, make sure that you have shared values. And if something feels off, always be willing to get out of the deal. We don't have to sign if you feel bad. If I don't feel good about you, if you don't feel good about me, it's better to avoid signing a bad deal with a bad person than trying to force a bad deal. And I've made that mistake. Trust me, not worth it.
What goes into selecting the properties that you choose?
Complete numbers, not about emotional decisions. You do research, you see what numbers are working, you see what other properties are doing on whatever platforms you're using. So for example, if you're using VRBO, you want to see what properties in the area, similar bedrooms, similar amenities. You want to make sure, for example, one of the actually tricks that you can use when you're looking for ownership, not only about cash flow, but when you're looking for ownership, is you can use the Starbucks test or the Chick-fil-A test. If there's a Chick-fil-A being built or currently just built, currently being built, or has been built in the last 5 years, that's probably a good area because they did their research for a decade before they made that decision. Then you're just piggybacking off their research.
Right.
So then if there's a Starbucks, there's a Chick-fil-A name there, you go ahead and you get a location there too. But they know something. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then you can go ahead, because remember, these models, they rely heavily on traffic. So they understand what's happening. And so then when you're looking at traffic, it's usually next to hospitals, next to universities, next to national parks, next to obviously downtown city centers, next to any of these things. You're looking for existing traffic and then you're trying to fulfill a need that already exists.
Now, what would you say to somebody who says, I want to get into nightly rentals, but I'm scared because I like the reliability of a long-term rental?
Sure, there are systems. You can also, there's not only short term and long term, there's also medium term. So there are people who are staying for maybe 3 to 6 months, or maybe just, 6 weeks, that will get you the best of both worlds. And you can find these people on Airbnb, you can find these people on VRBO, you can find these people on Furnish Finder, you can find them on Craigslist, you can find them on Facebook even too. For example, in Grenada, the Facebook groups for villas are very active because you have Airbnb, yes, but Facebook is more central to that economy. So when you're coming to Grenada, you might find more success looking for an Airbnb or getting people into your Airbnb from Grenada. From Facebook. Because what people do is that they put their phone number and they put them into the Facebook groups and they also put them on the Facebook marketplace. So again, there's not one way to do this. The business model is the same, but there's not one way to do this. So then it's pure numbers. You're looking at what other people are already doing, where they are setting up, what they're offering, and then you're looking at trying to beat them. So this is actually in the book. You're looking at their photos, you're looking at what they say, and you're going through and you're copying, not word for word, but you steal like an artist, right? That's the name of the book. Steal like an artist. Go read that book if you haven't, by the way. And you're learning from people who have already done what you want to do. Russell Brunson does this funnel hacking. So you go through someone else's funnel, learn why they do what they do, why they do the font this way, why they do the colors this way, why they add a space here, why they add an emoji here, why do the photos look this way, and you compare that to what you're doing, and you don't make it similar, you make it better.
That makes so much sense. Now, hearing that, it makes you wonder, well, what if you're member Mac, right? Or Facebook? They were the first of their kind. What do you say to people who hear this and go, well, I have something that's so original that I don't think I can follow anybody?
It's no problem. I have no advice for that person. Absolutely not. If you want to go and do something that's one of one, that's not me. Wish you all the best. I am not a one of one person. Well, no, that's not true. I am a one of one person. However, I want financial freedom. Many people who want to start one of one things, they're going after being very, very rich, which is fine. Real estate has been around for centuries and it will be around for centuries. You don't need to reinvent the wheel to have a fantastic life filled with financial bountifulness. You don't, because real estate can already do that. Vending machines can already do that. Tiles can already do that. Selling coaches can already do that. Not inventing a coach, not inventing shirts, not inventing jewelry. I don't need to do that, right? I can just do what someone else has already done and just do it a little bit better. This is key, a little bit faster. A little bit faster. It's very cool. And now, if you don't need to recreate something one on one, you're thinking in terms of systems. If this unit makes me 500, if this unit makes me $100, if this vending machine earns me $1,000, if this car makes me $2,000, if this store that I set up makes me $2,000, if this YouTube channel that I do earns me $2,000, how can I start a second one and grow the first one, right? Because then now you're scaling units. So then now you've made all the mistakes. So then now you get the second unit to $2,000 faster. Then you start doing it again and again and again.
Having replicated this as many times as you have, what is your net worth?
Funny. I think I'm somewhere between 1 and 2 million right now.
And you call yourself retired or financially free? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I am. So, okay, this is so we said that we are going to come back to this, didn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, major callback. This is good. Okay, good. So here we go. The reason I don't like financial independent retire early is because I don't think anybody should retire early. Retired and it was miserable. Don't do that. The reason why it's miserable because doing something with your life, animation, or saying animated, the word ani is, I think it's Latin, but it means alive. Action, it means alive. You have to do something to be alive. So action is very crucial to being an existent human being. Doing nothing is a surefire way to die. Surefire way. And this is why you see people who retire at 70, they were high-powered people. Then they retire at 70 and you see them wither away in 3 months. You look at the same person 3 months later. Wow, what happened to you? It's because they stopped moving. I'll tell you right now, retiring early is not a goal that anybody should aspire to. But you can retire into something. And I changed my definition. I want to retire into fullness. Then no, I do more now. I do more now than I did before I retired. Just think about that. I know travel, but I published a book, got it to #1, went on live TV, radio, did all this, right? and I have free courses and I help people all over the world, and I go live on YouTube and I make content every day. I work so much more now, but I love it. And it's work that I don't need to get paid for right now. So I can invest for something for 10 years because I have that luxury. But I do more now because I don't want to get to heaven well rested. And that has become my mantra. I don't want to leave stones unturned at the end of my life. But then doing nothing makes no sense. But financially independent, everybody should go for that. Oh my God. Feels great. Feels great. So then go for financial independence. Just don't retire early.
This whole interview series is about defining success and what that means to so many different people. So I ask you, hearing what you just has said and explained, what do you define as success?
I think success is whatever point that you are in life, you feel contentment. And the reason why I say that is because the person who's $10 billion, who feels that they should be richer than Elon Musk, won't feel successful. And you would be looking at that $10 million, 10 billion? Bro, if I had 10 billion, should have been me. That's what you would be saying. But here you are, $100,000, and someone is looking at you with, they've never seen $1,000 in their lifetime, like in total. And you have $100,000 right now, and you're doing the exact same thing. The exact same thing. That's a really cool lesson. And the reason why this lesson is so powerful is that you don't see me like, okay, I told you between 1 and 2 million, okay? So then by definition, there is a mansion out there that I can't afford. Cool, cool. Now I could look at that mansion, I could make myself miserable, or I could travel the world and be happy. Which would you choose?
Right. With that being
Right?
said, right, the 2 million, 1 million, what advice you have for me or someone like me who's trying to chase their first million?
Of course. So one is that you have to work extremely hard with extreme focus. It's not just about working hard because and you have to work with the 5 forms of leverage. See, this is very interesting that people get this wrong because you might be thinking, so I talk to someone and they'll say, yeah, I've been trying this, this fitness business for the last year and it just hasn't worked out. I said, okay, cool. How many pieces of content do you post every day? They'll say, well, I post 3 times a week. Come on now. Come on, man. Come on. Dude, you should be posting 3 times before noon. Before noon, every day, 7 days a week, for a year, before you even consider that this doesn't work for you. Because what's going to happen is that you learn that your videos suck faster. And they do. They do suck.
You're
That's
right.
why you're not growing. Right?
Yeah.
Because my first videos are terrible. So the videos that you see now is because if you go to my Instagram and the number that you'll see in the left corner is the number of posts. And I've archived a bunch. But the number up there is still 1,500 or 1,700 now. That's how much reps it takes, right? It's a lot more than people think. So then you're working with extreme focus for a certainly long time and getting better along the way. And you're also working with leverage. What do I mean by leverage? So then understand if you're a teacher, you're not really working with leverage. But leverage comes from code. Then if you can write one piece of code and 50 million people can use it, like Facebook, that's great. 2, community. If you can build a community of 50 million people and ask them to buy $1 thing, you make a $50 million. If you can know somebody, if you know Elon Musk, just on Elon Musk alone, people give you money and give you interviews, another form of leverage. One relationship, many people. Capital. So that could be human capital or could be financial capital. So then if you have $500 million, you can buy a building and that building can make you money. Or you can start a business and that business can make you money. Or you can buy a business, that business can make you money. And the last one is content. You can make one piece of content that goes viral, reaches 50 million people, 5,000 people buy something for $100. That's content. If you're working with one of these forms of leverage, really you should be working with 2 or 3. But if you're working with at least one, you're going to get to your million a lot faster. So then you can think for me, for example, in my companies, we use code, we use capital. Don't have community yet for the companies that I do. Don't have connections yet for the companies that I do. But what was the last one? Code, capital, content. We do use content. But I'm using 3, right? Now, community got this to a bestseller. As a business, it is an asset though. This community got this to a bestseller and content. Connections also got me on TV. You see how I use all 5 of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Same thing there. All right. Then if you're not so then you might write and you're thinking, oh, I just write, it's going to be great. If you're not working with the 5 forms of leverage, you have no content. You have no content to market your book. You have no one that can put you in front of an audience of 50,000 people. How is it going to go viral?
Right.
Then you have to work on the leverage separate from the book. You work on the book first. And then, or simultaneously, you work on the five forms of leverage for the next 10 years. And then at the end of that 10 years, you have a community that you can sell to, you have content that you can publish, you have connections that you can leverage, and now you can make your book go viral. This is the secret.
I want to highlight something that you said. You said, when you first start, you suck. And I want everyone to hear that. It sucks to suck, but everyone starts from somewhere that sucks. And it's not
No,
going to be perfect. And you can do it even when it's not perfect and learn as you go. And who gives a shit what anybody thinks about you? People are going to talk
right.
crap. People are going to have their opinions. They're going to roll their eyes. They're going to laugh. But if you keep your head down and keep doing what you're doing, you will find success and whatever that means to you, for sure. I
Absolutely.
couldn't
No,
agree more.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You started at 15 years old doing your own businesses, learned about stocks, educated yourself, read countless books, now own a couple different businesses, best-selling books. You've achieved so much already in your lifetime. Now what?
The next thing for me is that I want to go on and win an Emmy before I'm 50 years old. I'm not sure if you knew this, but Obama has won more Grammys than Tupac.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So you think that sometimes, no, that's Grammys, that's not Emmys. But you'd think that sometimes things work in particular orders, but it's being attached to a product and having influence and having impact in the world often gets rewarded with these things. And sometimes it's opinion as well. Now, if you have an interesting story to tell, that's what I'm going for. That's why I think Emmy can win an Emmy for an interesting story. But then now, my goal for the next 25 years, 20 years, 25 years, whatever, is to go ahead and make an interesting story. And then I will use that story to tell an Emmy, which you read it here first, or you watch it here first, or you listen to it here first, to go ahead and get myself an Emmy before I turn 50. That's everything. That's what I'm focused on. Now, in between that, maybe there might be another book. Well, actually, no, that's for another 10 years. But there might be something in the middle. There might be TV shows I do. There might be other businesses that I start. But the point is, the end of those, before I hit 50, big goal, my next big goal is to get an Emmy.
Do you want the Emmy to be in storytelling? What do you want it to be in?
Yes, storytelling for stand-up comedy. Yes, storytelling is a form of stand-up comedy, and obviously making people laugh is great. But I think what people misunderstand sometimes about stand-up comedy is you need people laughing every single minute. Necessarily true. Some of the best comedians in the world may be talking for 2 minutes before you hear a laugh, but those 2 minutes, everybody's listening. And because it's a story. One of my favorite storytellers in the world is Ali Sadiq. Another one, controversial maybe, Dave Chappelle. Another one, Trevor Noah. These people tell stories, not necessarily only to make you laugh, but it's also to teach you something and open up your worldview to something that might be bigger than you. This is why their clips go viral, for teaching you something. And I think having an interesting story does help that, because all of those people, even if you don't agree with what they say, even though they're joking, they still have something interesting to say. And that's what's required.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it still makes you feel something. That's
Yes.
the reality.
They do.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you have something that you can share with us? Give us a laugh or a sample of future Kadeem's Emmy award-winning project.
I don't. And here's the thing about here's the thing about that. I don't. If you're ever an artist listening, you have to be in the proper context to be able to hear these things, right? And so then outside of context, you don't really want to do stand-up comedy outside of a context for comedy. You don't want to do. I was a musician. I'm not just going to play something here for you, right? Because it's not the proper context. I won't be appreciated in the same way. But within the proper context, yes, absolutely. And I will have a lot of content over the next few years as a transition away from talking about money and financial freedom. Yeah, maybe I'll talk about this for another maybe 3 or 4 years, but I will transition into telling more stories on my social media. And again, I will suck. For a long time, I'm prepared to not do anything significant for the first 6, 7 years, because I understand the compounding effect, which is that I will spend 7 years preparing for my eighth year. My eighth year, I zoom, or ninth year, I zoom. That's how it works. Prepared to not be good for a very long time.
With that being said, if somebody wants to follow your story, where can they find you?
Instagram is the place I'm most active. If you Google my name, Kadeem Leslie, it's gonna come right up. My Instagram is up there, and it's where people connect with me from all over the world. I'll tell you, it's really fun on my Instagram. We cover all the stuff. It's I am KADE underscore. So I am KADE underscore. My Instagram. You can find me there. Most of the things that involved with, you can find it from there as well. So then, just give me a follow. If you're curious, you can always send me a DM. We do have a community of people. We have free training for you if you don't have the investment right now, but you still want to learn. We have that for you, not a problem. We have free content. I do have a YouTube as well, Kadeem Rich Journey. Lots of people all over the world are joining this incredible movement. So I welcome you with open arms. Come on in.
Thank you so much for your time. And I cannot wait to see where you go because I totally believe that the sky is the limit for you and you're going to be standing on stage with that Emmy. And everything that you've accomplished thus far is truly incredible. And I greatly appreciate your time and your wisdom and just the experience that you brought to us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Jen. This has been great.
Absolutely.